Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to my review of Eden Zero Chapter 130, which in my opinion was the definition of a setup slash epilogue chapter. Because in this week's chapter there was no action, there was no new locations discovered by Shiki and the gang, or even a new destination set for them to go to. There's just four separate conversations that all serve the purpose of kind of shifting the focus of the next arc from hunting down Ziggy to focusing on Poseidon Nero and his crew. Okay, so we start the chapter off on Justice's ship, and we see Creed creeping on some pictures of Homura, which I don't remember him having the time to take these pictures of her during their interactions, unless his glasses can basically function also as a camera as well. But anyway, he's creeping on some pictures of her when he gets caught by Victory, and as soon as Victory shows up, he immediately switches the conversation from creeping on pictures of Homura to basically reviewing the Eden Zero crew and basically trying to find any weaknesses or any information on them. Now, I actually really dug this moment when Creed is going over the roster of the Eden Zero crew, which at the current moment he does not include Jin, Klein, and Laguna, so I guess he's not aware of the fact that they are temporary members. But I actually really dug this moment because of the fact that it really reminded me of the way people describe the Straw Hat crew over in One Piece, because of how he says that they, on paper, they don't really look like they should go together at all, because you got a B-Cuber, you got some mystery kid that no one really knows about who got his powers from Ziggy, you got a guy who's from 50 years in the past, you got a samurai, some cute little robots, and then 3 androids who used to work under Ziggy. On paper, this crew should not work together as a team, and yet they somehow managed to make it work. And it's the same way I imagine people describe the One Piece or the Straw Hat crew over in One Piece. On paper, they are so dysfunctional that they should not work together as a crew, and yet somehow they managed to still do it. Now, after they go over the roster, Victory tells them, hey, don't worry about them, they're small fry, they're not really worth our time right now. And he tells them that right now they're going to be focusing on finding Ziggy and taking down Poseidon Nero. And then we cut over to good old boy Justice, who looks in this chapter about as bandaged up as Elsie did in the last chapter. So it's actually kind of cool to see and confirm that they did about the same amount of damage to each other. But we see him having a conversation, and I guess continuing the conversation from the last time we saw him, with Holly. And she's basically telling him to focus or shift focus away from Elsie and the Eden Zero crew, and switch over to hunting down and taking down Poseidon Nero. Now, as soon as Shura is brought up, Justice immediately writes him off as not being a threat, but Holly actually counteracts by saying that at some point in the future he could potentially end up being a big threat, and it's better for them to take care of him now, especially before he ends up taking over his father's empire, while he still can, before he actually ends up becoming something that they can't handle. Which to me leads me to think that at this current moment, Justice must be way stronger than Shura. Like, if we were going to be power scaling in this chapter, I would put Justice at like top tier, Shura at mid tier, which means that Shiki, because we know that Shura is stronger than Shiki at the current moment, has to be low tier. And like I said earlier, this chapter pretty much set up the fact that going forward, we're going to be shifting focus away from Ziggy and focusing on fighting off Poseidon Nero's crew, which means at some point in the next few arcs, Shiki is going to come face to face with Shura and have to fight off against him. Which means between now and then, Shiki has to go through some major power-ups in order to fight on equal terms with Shura, and at the end of the chapter, we actually do have a setup for Shiki going through some training in order to get stronger. Now, Holly also mentions that in order to make sure they take down Poseidon Nero and Shura, she's sending Eraser and Jaguar as backup, 2 other members of the Erasion States Interstellar. Now, keep in mind, these 2 people, even though we don't know exactly what their strengths are, what their abilities are, we know that they had to be at least the same level of power as Justice. And when it came to Shiki fighting Justice, the power difference between the 2 of them was vast. I would say about the same amount as Natsu trying to fight off against Guildarts during the first time in Fairy Tail. And keep in mind, this is just one member of the Erasion States Interstellar, and we don't know exactly where Justice actually lands on power scaling between those members. We don't know if he's the weakest, the mid-tier, the strongest, but imagine that there's 2 other characters about as strong as Justice going up against Shiki in the next arc. Now, realistically speaking, if the Eden Zero crew, including Jin, Klein, and Laguna, actually run into those 3 members in the next arc, they should not be able to walk away alive with all 3 of them being there. Now, there is a saving grace though, because Justice only sees the Eden Zero crew as people that he has to take down because of their connection to Elsie. But if Jaguar and Eraser actually don't see them, and this actually could end up happening because Justice has a very strong hatred and, resentment towards Elsie, so that's the reason why he actually regards anyone who knows her as being evil and a threat, and someone he needs to take care of. But if the other 2 don't actually see him as that, then there's not going to be any reason for them to fight against them, so they won't have to worry about them. Now, Justice also asks why Holly isn't going with them on this mission, and she says that she has her own things to take care of. And I don't know, there's something about the way that Holly's been acting since her introduction and since the last 2 chapters that we've seen her in. It seems like she's kind of there's some kind of mystery going on with her. Like, obviously, Hero's setting up some kind of mystery with her character that I'm interested in seeing unravel as the series goes on, because I'm wondering if I kind of get this feeling that she's playing both sides. Like, she's playing the Erasion States Interstellar versus the Erasion States Galactica, like, against each other for her own benefit. But I'm not sure. Maybe she actually is just on board 100% with the Interstellar Union Army, and she's kind of just a mysterious character at heart. But I don't know, there's something about her character that kind of just makes me think that she has some kind of plans on the side that's going on. Now after that, we actually cut over to a brand new planet, the planet Nero 1, the temple, which I can imagine is the main home base of Poseidon Nero, in which you head over to his castle and we actually get to see Poseidon Nero in the flesh for the first time in this chapter, and man, his design is incredible. I mean, he looks exactly like how you would imagine a more monster-looking Poseidon would look. And the reason why we're cutting over to him is because he's actually having a meeting with his top enforcers, the Ocean Six, about the fact that Ziggy openly basically declared war on him in his own cosmos. And this is actually kind of cool meeting because of the fact that, and I didn't notice at first until I actually read the chapter, but apparently Hiro Mashima actually put out a poll, or actually not a poll, a contest online, an international contest, open to everyone in the entire world who actually reads his manga, and basically left it open to fans to design the characters for the Ocean Six. And yo, this is actually really cool of Hiro to do, basically giving fans a chance to have their own original characters inserted into his manga, and not just as background characters, but as major characters in the next arc going forward. And the fact that he didn't change anything about the designs as far as I could tell, he just drew them in his art style, and really only tweaked the powers a little bit, basically gave some of the characters different powers than they originally were intended to have from the fan submissions. But still, the fact that he managed to do this, or the fact that he was willing to do this, really shows exactly how interactive Hiro is with his fan base, which just gives us another reason to support this guy because of the fact that he obviously very much loves his fan base. Now, this meeting's actually kind of interesting because we get a good look at what kind of character Poseidon Nero is, and it seems like he's actually a really decent guy. Like, we see him basically talking about Ziggy in the past tense as like they were like really close friends, someone he actually considered a close ally. We found out that he actually was the one who taught Shura gravity ether gear. So it really seems like Poseidon Nero is actually a really good dude. So it's kind of hard to think of him as being the major threat of the next arc, or like the major villain of the next arc. And I can actually see that Hiro setting up this chapter that he's not going to be the villain. Shura is. Because throughout the meeting, you can tell that Shura really has no respect for his old man, and he kind of just fears the power that he has over him. And you can tell at the end of the meeting, when we have a little bit of inner monologue from Shura, that he seems to be plotting something against his old man, and actually might have manipulated him into leaving Shura in charge of fighting off against Ziggy, or basically getting revenge against Ziggy for betraying them. And the reason why he did that is because Poseidon Nero actually relies on dice. He actually reads kind of the fortune or the future by rolling dice, and he kind of lets that control his fate. And he rolls some dice in the chapter during a meeting, and they come up with numbers. I'm actually going to go back and actually see what numbers they come up with, see if maybe anyone who does fortune telling through dice work, I don't know if anyone does, but maybe we can actually see if there's any information we can glean from the numbers that he gets. Okay, so I just went back and checked, and actually looks like Poseidon actually rolls 3 1s, which if he was playing D&D, I think his character would just die right there on the spot. I don't know, I never played D&D myself. But when it comes to fortune telling, 1 actually means that you're more than likely going to have some kind of family misfortune, which is going to lead to you being lonely. And based on the way that Shura is acting in this chapter, and the fact that he actually rolled 3 1s, not just 1, I think this means that because of the fact that Shura is probably scheming something in order to take over the throne from his dad, that in this arc, more than likely Shura is going to end up dying, which would mean that the fortune that Poseidon rolled would end up coming true, because the misfortune would be his son dying, and the loneliness part of it would be assuming that Shura is his only son and only living family member. Basically, by him dying would leave him without any family. Now, the reason why I think that this prediction actually might be true is because of the fact that the way that Poseidon looks at Shura as he's leaving the meeting, he kind of looks at him with like a look of regret and disappointment, and I don't know, just something about that look actually leads me to think that this is the last time that Poseidon actually plans on, or thinks he's going to end up seeing Shura. But yeah, it seems like the whole point of this meeting was to set up in the next arc that Shura and the Ocean Six crew are going to be the main villains. And basically, we cut over after that to Shiki, Homura, Rebecca, and I think Hermit talking with Master Zenolith again. And basically, in the conversation, we end up finding out that the reason why Ziggy actually attacked Planet Pharessa was that he was actually looking and trying to kill off Master Zenolith before he actually managed to meet up with Shiki. Because even though right now Master Zenolith is too old and too weak to be a threat to Ziggy, he was afraid that if he actually ended up meeting up with Shiki, he could train him to potentially end up being a threat, so he wanted to get rid of him ahead of time. But actually the plan did end up working, obviously, and now that Master Zenolith is part of the Eden Zero crew or aboard the ship, he plans on training Shiki in order to get strong enough to take down Ziggy. But anyway, guys, that's all that happened in this week's chapter. I cannot wait to see what this next arc is going to look like with all these characters involved. Everything's just going to be chaotic, and I cannot wait to read it. But that is it for the video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Comment down below your thoughts and theories, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.